Hello, I would like to welcome you on behalf of the Salon Piano Series to a discussion about the Mason Hamlin Concert Grand played by Dick Hyman. I'm Tim Farley, and I and my colleagues have restored this wonderful instrument. It is a CC1, and it is the 39th piano that Mason and Hamlin made of this particular model. A few things that set it apart from other instruments. Number one, the weight of this piano is nearly 500 pounds more than a Concert Grand Steinway. The Boston makers were known for having massive amounts of cast iron in their pianos, and that you can hear that the braces sound like timpanis, they're tuned. As well, the instrument is equipped with a tension resonator underneath the instrument that holds the case in every direction. Mason and Hamlin was rather a latecomer to the modern age of pianos, and I would say that this instrument is modern in its tonal makeup. They produced pianos before 1900, but in 1900 they paired up with a German engineer named Gertz, and he redesigned the instruments. And prior to that, their instruments had very pointed corners, like the old Bechsteins and some of the newer pianos, which means that those instruments were made with dovetail joints on three corners, rather than a continuous pressing of the maple strips that were 4 to 5 millimeters thick all the way around. That meant that they needed over 22 feet of continuous maple with clear with no knots. One of the other things that really is quite different about the Boston pianos, from the bridge to the hitch pins, the little pins back there, this is called the waist area of the strings. Many modern makers, including Steinway, Yamaha, Kawai, and so on, put a duplex back there that tunes the waist areas to certain segments of the fundamental in those areas of the piano from about note 35 on up. Mason and Hamlin, like Chickering and Bechstein, even 30 years ago, believed that that was unnecessary for the purity of tone, and they felted off the strings with red felt right before the hitch pin. So you might ask, what is the advantage of doing that? Well, the main thing is that the longer the waist string is, the more it allows the soundboard to vibrate more freely. Whereas putting the little pyramid in place there, it tightens up the vibration of the piano. And as you can hear, as Dick Hyman said, well, we could go on all day with the sustain of this instrument. One of the other advantages of not having the duplex system in the waist area of the piano is when you play a single note, and now you play that same note with the sustain pedal pressed down, there obviously has to be a difference because of the fact that once the dampers are lifted off the strings, you're exciting all of the bass strings in the piano and all of the harmonics of the bass strings, which include all of these sounds are in this fundamental tone, and they go quite a ways up So those are the harmonics that clothe the tone of the fundamental of the instrument. And those tones, those harmonics, as well as the fundamental, which is the namesake of the note, that would be the fundamental. Those are the jewels that clarify and add greatness to the sound of the piano. Now, most pianos from here on up do not have dampers at all. And so that is purposely done because if dampers went all the way to the top note of the piano would sound pretty dead. You really are relying on these open strings here to add color and so on to the piano. Now, the three main pianos in our country that were the most astounding piano manufacturers were Chickering, Mason and Hamlin, and Steinway. Back then, each city had its own individual sound. For instance, the Boston sound was quite different than the New York sound. Many of the makers in Boston were tuning their instruments to 435 hertz for A 440. In New York, in 1876, as an example, Steinway was tuning their instruments to A 457 hertz. Chickering's always held to that lower pitch for A, transforming the piano from something that nobody wanted to play anymore into a glorious instrument that everybody would like to play and record on. We have changed the sounding board, a new sounding board, a new bridge, new dampers, new pin block, new strings, new tuning pins, and all new action components in the piano. So when we speak about the action, we're speaking about, as I had mentioned, the back action or the damper mechanism. That's in the cavity here. The key action, which is here, and the key action, the whole piano action works on gears. And the big gear is the piano key. The next larger gear is the hammer shank, where it rotates on a circle like this. And then the whippen rotates here. And then smaller gear yet is the jack here. The reason that we donate these pianos for their use with the Salon Piano Series is to educate people as to the differences